diocese is publishing an additional list of priests who have against them substantiated allegations of sexual abuse of a minor. We know some of our priests, especially in decades-old cases, are guilty. The Diocese of Buffalo deserves to regain stability.
Amid a church in crisis, Buffalo Bishop Richard Malone is still not stepping down. Good evening, everyone. Instead, he released a new list of clergy members accused of sexually abusing minors.
The bishop just wrapped up his news conference a few minutes ago where he faced some tough questions about the ongoing scandal. We have team coverage tonight with more reaction from the bishop and other church members. But first, we want to take a quick look back at how the scandal unfolded. It wasn't until March of this year that the Diocese of Buffalo announced a list of 42 accused priests. Since then, the bishop has stood firm in his decision to lead the diocese, despite calls for him to resign. In the last 2 months, the diocese has been subpoenaed by the state, and whistleblower Siobhan O'Connor has come forward. Just days ago, the diocese responded to O'Connor with a release of personal emails.
Well, today, the bishop continued the conversation, answering questions from the media. News 4's Jen Schatz was there. She begins our team coverage now live from Cheektowaga with the bishop's message. Jen?
Don, Bishop Malone left the Monsignor Hennessy Hall here at the Infant of Prague Parish in Cheektowaga about a half hour ago. This was following that meeting with all priests and transitional deacons that was closed to the public. But of course, we did hear from him around 2:30, and he just left that meeting. I want to hold up the biggest piece of new information we got out of that meeting, which Don and Jackie, you just mentioned. This is an updated list. The names on this list we have not heard from publicly before from the diocese. Included in this new list of accused priests are 20 diocesan priests and 16 order priests. Now, that is significant because in the past we have not had order priests on that list of accused priests that the diocese put out back in March. Now, Jackie, you mentioned from the beginning this was all kicked off by a South Buffalo man, Michael Whalen, who in late February came out and told the world that he was abused by Father Norbert Orsolitz as a boy. That's what started what many would call a tidal wave in the Buffalo Catholic Diocese. And we did learn today that the case against Father Norbert Orsolitz, who again is accused of sexually abusing Michael Whalen as a boy, that case is being sent to Rome. It is being sent to the Vatican.
Finding the truth can be difficult in these cases. This, too, unfortunately, takes time and cooperation.
With all of our cases that we are dealing with now, many of them are old cases, and so the bishop wrote to Rome asking the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith if they would still accept our old cases that we have in our files to be presented to them. They said yes.
Now, I did mention this new piece of information that we heard from the Buffalo Diocese. That press conference, though, was a long one. It was over an hour, and the majority of that press conference was taken up by statements of diocesan attorneys, Lawler Quinlan and Terry Connors. We did not hear very much from the bishop, although he did take the time to answer our questions. I think all the reporters in that room would have wanted to hear a little bit more from him and less from the diocesan attorneys, who really reiterated some of the information that we already know, information about the Independent Reconciliation Compensation Program and information about that 2002 Dallas Charter, which several members of the diocese noted in talking about how abuse allegations have gone down since that. But I do want to bring in News 4's Marissa Perlman. Marissa, you were outside prior to the meeting with priests and, of course, prior to that 2:30 public meeting with the bishop, and you heard from not only from priests but from Catholics.
Yeah, and despite what may have happened inside, it seems like the priest that we spoke with, truly, Jen, had a lot to say about this. Again, it was a very special meeting, a one-on-one with Bishop Richard Malone, and it was an open conversation. Many of us telling us that this meeting was truly somber in nature and a lot of tense moments to share with you. We spoke with many of them as they left Prague Parish here in Cheektowaga just about 2 hours ago. We're told more than 100 priests from across our area showed up to address this sex abuse crisis. A big question, of course, on the minds of clergy: will Bishop Malone resign? We're told told only one priest inside that meeting verbally asked Bishop Malone to step down. He then asked the priesthood to support him and let him finish the work he started over the past 6 years. Although the media was not allowed inside, priests we spoke with say the meeting again had a few tense moments, and many clergy had some tough questions for Bishop Malone. Those tense moments came when he was asked about the process for accusing priests. A lot of these priests had questions about that process, and again, that one call for him to step down.
He listened. Yeah. But he says he would like to stay because there's things he still wants to. I don't think that the bishop has a lot of credibility right now. I think it's going to be very hard to move ahead with him. Well, we have to have hope. The church has been around for 2,000 years and it's weathered many crises, and we'll weather this one too. Yes.
The number of priests were definitely, the majority was very in favor of Bishop Malone.
And now, one thing that I was surprised to learn from these priests, most of the questions from clergy members talked about false accusations, as now any clergy member with just one accusation is immediately put on administrative leave. Many of those priests say they're concerned about that process and had a lot of questions for Bishop Malone moving forward. One thing all of these priests agree with is that Bishop Malone has a tough road ahead and a tough road to regain trust in the Catholic Church. Reporting in Cheektowaga, Marissa Perlman, News 4.
Thank you, Marissa. And as she said, before this afternoon's meeting, we saw both protesters and supporters of the bishop hold demonstrations outside the Infant of Prague parish. Protesters called for Bishop Malone to step down, while other demonstrators kneeled and held signs showing their support.
We want our priests to know that we are praying very hard for them. We know this is not a very easy position for them to be in. This is not a job for them. This is their vocation. And we want to let them know that they have their parishioners behind them, praying for them and supporting them.
I think that the church should kind of stand up for what it really is supposed to mean. And I would like to not have to think poorly about the religion that was a very big impact in my life.
The bishop said today the investigation takes time and cooperation. He said the diocese has hired more staff to help in the investigation. Again, he reiterated that despite calls for him to step down, he will not resign.
And we'll have much more coverage on the sex scandal abusing right here in the Buffalo Diocese of Buffalo. That's coming up on News 4 at 5:30. You can also watch all of our coverage by going to our website, WIVB.com, and by downloading the free News 4 app.